Hello, America's Job Exchange is pleased to bring you this webinar exploring Is Your Job Ad Telling the Right Story? We will begin at the top of the hour.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. Today we're going to be exploring, is your job ad telling the right story? So to kick things off, I want to introduce myself. My name is Dustin White. I'm a senior recruiting consultant here at Bird Dog HR. I've been in the recruiting industry for about 6 years now. 3 of those have been spent directly working on the recruitment or staffing team for Bird Dog HR. My favorite part of my role is being able to assist our customers with their overall talent acquisition strategy, as well as their immediate hiring needs. I'm also involved heavily with our internal recruiting strategy as well. I also wanted to share a little bit with you about our partnership with America's Job Exchange. So at Bird Dog HR, we offer a full talent suite, including an applicant tracking system. A lot of our customers overlap with America Job Exchange in the sense that, they're high risk, high consequence industries, construction market, federal contractors. So we took it upon ourselves to reach out to America's Job Exchange and establish that partnership. So when it comes to things like OFCCP compliance, we have a platform for our customers to refer to and, can trust and really appreciate all they do for those customers when we refer them to them and their platform. So today's agenda, it's a 60-minute session. Here's what I'm going to be covering. I'm going to start with kind of how to build your best job ad, what goes into that. Going to touch on candidate experience, bettering your talent acquisition strategy, measuring success with what I like to call kind of data-driven recruitment, and preparing for each search, some sourcing tips, and then some strategies to level your social recruiting platforms, and then a brief recap. And then towards the end, there'll definitely be some time for a Q&A. So if you have any questions of topics maybe I didn't touch on thoroughly or any questions about things I specifically covered today, go ahead and type those in, and we can get to them at the end of the webinar. So to kick things off, why is building a great job ad important? Really, in my mind, it's kind of your company's first impression. You can think of it as even when you introduce yourself to somebody in real life, you want to give off a good, lasting impression. So our goal with a job ad is to do the same thing. Treat it as an introduction to your company. A lot of times, maybe a candidate reviewing your job ad, that might be the first time they've heard of your company, or maybe the first time they've really researched your company. So do something that is going to have a lasting impact on them and want them to apply with your company and be a part of your organization. It also gives you the opportunity to make sure that you're targeting the right individuals. So keep it industry specific. Keep it targeting the right demographic. You don't want to just be super generic and get a bunch of candidates that really aren't the people that you're looking for. It also gives you an opportunity to sell your company and culture. So your company's culture is the one thing that should be specific to you. So it's the one thing that you can kind of sell and create in a way that kind of separates you from any competitors or anybody else that's in your industry. It also helps you just generally get the word out, lets people know that, hey, we're growing, we're looking for candidates, we're looking to hire, come join our team. So what things should you be including in your job ad when it comes time to actually build it? Now, I know this seems pretty straightforward, but you'd be surprised the amount of customers, both big and small, that I work with on a weekly basis that struggle to create a really good job ad that attracts the right types of people. So the first thing you're going to want to do is come up with like an industry-specific title. So for instance, I have a lot of customers that are hiring for project managers, and when they create their job ad, they're just specifying project manager and not specifically what type of project manager they're looking for. For instance, I have one customer in particular that will use just project manager as their industry job title. They get a lot of maybe IT or technology professional project managers rather than the construction market. So it's really, really key to make sure your title matches the people that you're targeting. Once again, sell your company culture. That's the one thing that you're going to be able to pitch and sell to people and make them want to be a part of your organization. You should also be including just a brief overview of the job. Even include kind of an ideal candidate. So the person reading it or the job seeker who's reading it gets a great idea and can tell right away, hey, am I that ideal candidate or not? And then the day-to-day duties, responsibilities, these should be clearly identified. Somebody should be able to quickly read your job ad, be able to tell right away, hey, am I meeting these? Am I going to be able to perform these duties and responsibilities up to their standards? Am I going to be able to have success in this role? And then same with must-have qualifications. These should be easily identified and really clearly defined. So for instance, if you're looking for a specific bachelor's degree or master's degree, are those must-haves? What type, if they are? And any sort of accreditations or certifications, are those requirements for your job ad? Be sure to include those. And if it's not necessarily a requirement, just a nice to have, be sure to specify that on your job ad. If it's not something that you're going to rule somebody out for, be sure to specify that. And then with your benefits and perks, be sure to include kind of what you're offering. And a lot of times when it gets to this section of a job ad, it'll be the standard health benefits and retirement plan. And those are great things to include, especially if you're offering like a company match and maybe if you're paying for your health benefits. But some other perks that you should be including is, are you offering per diem? Are you offering sign-on bonuses, company vehicles, gas cards? Anything that kind of separates you from a potential competitor, those are things that you kind of want to think outside the box and include when you're building your job ads. Probably the most important thing, though, is to just tell your story. Like I said before, your company culture is the one thing that you can really pitch and sell. So getting a candidate interested in your company is just as important as the job itself, because without candidates, being interested in your opportunity, you're not going to get the right people, or you might get candidates, but they're not going to be the right fit, or they're not going to be the candidates that you're looking for. So you should be able to sell your company and sell your advertisement as you would any other product or service that you're offering, only rather than thinking of it of trying to gain a new customer or client, you're selling it to a potential a candidate for a new career opportunity. And it's very, very important to make it memorable. On average, it's stated that candidates spend anywhere from 50 to 60 seconds reviewing job ads. So you don't have a lot of time to make an impact. So make sure you're standing out above the rest. You don't want to get lost in the shuffle, especially in today's market. It's super, super competitive. Another thing you want to consider, even after building your job ad, is thinking about the candidate experience. So what does this mean? It means that you're thinking in the candidate's perspective. If you're a job seeker, what would you want to see as an application process, or what would you expect as the hiring process to be for a position that you're applying to? For instance, if your job application is taking a candidate, 40 plus minutes or 50 plus minutes to apply to, you should definitely consider revising that. I know internally for Bird Dog HR, our candidates can submit their job application in less than 10 minutes in most cases. So think of your candidate's time, respect their time, and recreate your process to kind of be in the candidate's perspective. And then also, ghosting is something that's very real. So you don't want to ghost your candidates. So what you should be doing, hopefully you have a platform or an ATS or some type of HRM system that allows you to create auto messaging or email templates. So communication is very, very easy. For instance, when we post jobs internally or for customers, we set up an auto response email. So anybody that applies is instantly getting that instant gratification of, okay, Bird Dog HR accepted my application. It's under review. Now I'm waiting on next steps. And then don't just leave it at that. Continue throughout the requisition life cycle, communicating with your candidates. Send out email updates. Let them know if they're still being considered or not. And let them know if they are being considered. Schedule, coordinate phone screens, coordinate next steps, continue to follow up. And then at the end, if they get to the final stages, don't just leave them hanging if you move forward with somebody else and actually hire somebody else. Keep them in your talent pipeline. So then later on, when you maybe are recruiting for a similar role, you can then reach out to those people who maybe made it to previous final stages and say, hey, we have a similar role. Would you be interested now? So bettering your talent acquisition strategy, this really comes down to two things in my mind. The first is understanding your data. And I'm going to get into that a little bit more detail on my next slide, but it's also using the proper tools. So like I said before, hopefully you have some type of applicant tracking system or HCM tool that allows you to easily distribute your jobs to specific job boards or integrate with specific social media sites. Hopefully it also allows you to create some type of pre-screen questions. So if you're a hiring manager or a recruiter, chances are you're probably covering multiple job requisitions, maybe 10, 20 at a time. So anything you can do to kind of take some of that load off to screen applicants out of the process who aren't meeting your basic qualifications is definitely going to be a helpful tool to integrate in your process. Same with email templates and communication. These are all things that you should be setting up as part of your hiring process in your applicant tracking system so you can stay engaged with your candidates right away. Same with creating talent pipelines or candidate pools. What I do in our system is I create talent tags and just attach them to specific candidates. So later on, when I'm hiring maybe for a sales position, I can go back and pull off all previous sales applicants that maybe have applied within the last 6 months, maybe when we weren't hiring or are really looking. That way I can target those people first. Same with referral networks, both internal and external. These are things you definitely want to have set up and have in place. And then career feed integration. Hopefully your applicant tracking system is allowing you to share the positions that you have open on your actual company website. Up to 94% of job seekers expect to see your job openings on your company website. We find internally that having our positions posted on our company site does increase applicant flow. A lot of times people might see our job openings on our social media platforms, or they might see them on a job board, but they don't necessarily apply from there. They'll go to our website, review or research our company first, and then go to our careers tab and apply that way. So it's definitely important to have that job feed integration set up. And then also, you shouldn't view your applicant tracking system as an end-all solution. It's definitely a tool that helps you, find talent and recruit talent, but it's not an end-all solution. That's one mistake that's commonly made is people think, oh, I have this applicant tracking system or I have this tech and all these tools that come with it. I should just be able to post my job and expect the best candidates. That's not the case. You need to expand your reach beyond just your applicant tracking software. For instance, whenever we're hiring IT people, it's super, super competitive in our market. So what I'll do is go out into the community and engage with those individuals at tech meetups and things like that, doing recruiting at career fairs, establishing relationships with local colleges and tech schools, whatever I need to do on the back end to continue those conversations and find the right type of talent that I'm looking for. So measuring for your success. So I like to think of this as data-driven recruitment. So as a recruiter, these are questions that I'm constantly being asked, or I'm asking myself from either, department heads or people that I'm working with. But as a recruiter or hiring manager, you should be asking yourself, what is our average time to fill? Where are our most qualified applicants coming from? What is our turnaround? What tools are we using, and how to improve your efficiency? So average time to fill is definitely something you want to be aware of. So sure, based on their survey results, their average time to fill across all industries that responded to their survey is about 42 days. This can vary widely depending on the position, but it is a good benchmark to start if you really have no idea if you're going into this blindly or you're just trying to start tracking average time to fill. 42 days is probably a good place to start, but there's a bunch of benchmarking tools out there. I use one from Workable. It's a free benchmarking tool. You can specify by industry specifically or job title specifically, and it will give you kind of an average time to fill or what your expectations should be as a company to fill that position. So I would recommend going out there, researching that, and then using your internal reporting to kind of get that data yourself and see where you're at. And then you should be able to tell by your internal reporting as well where your most qualified candidates are coming from. So a report in our system that I use probably weekly is our Source Analytics report. What this does is allow me to run a report for a certain amount of time, and will give me where our applicants are coming from. So are they coming from social media? Are they coming from specific job boards? Are they coming from some of our partners? Basically allowing me to track where we need to be spending time and money and what resources work for what positions. You also want to take into effect your average turnover. So this is going to vary by position. If you have high turnover positions, obviously, you're losing money. The average, based on SHRM data, the average hire cost an employer a little over $4,000. So if you're looking to make maybe 50 hires in a year, that's probably over upwards of $200,000 investment just on hiring alone. So making the right hiring decisions is extremely vital. So you're not wasting or blowing your recruitment budget on people who aren't working out. So that really goes down to what tools are you using? Are you is there ROI with the tools you're using? Are they giving you the resources you need to find candidates and to lower your average time to fill and reduce your turnover and increase your retention? And then another thing to consider when you're thinking about improving these metrics and making them more efficient is building a candidate database. So you don't have to look for candidates from scratch every time you open a new position. Your ATS already has many qualified candidates who may have applied to previous similar positions in the past, or maybe they got to the final stages in the past. Reach out to those people, get them in your hiring process right away. And then be actively sourcing. So you should have some type of idea of what you're forecasting for the year. So maybe you're not hiring for that position today, but you're going to be in 3 to 6 months or something like that. Be actively sourcing, always networking, and getting engaged with potential applicants that could fill that role later. And then don't be afraid to scrutinize your processes. So if your time to fill is higher than what you would like it to be, there's many layers that are involved with that. I mean, there's time to, how long does it take from an applicant to get from an applicant to the interview stage, or how long does it take from an application to a phone screen stage? So those are also things within the time to fill metric that you should be reviewing as well. If it's taking too long for you to get an applicant to an interview, maybe that's something you need to review internally and definitely revise to get it more smooth or more streamlined throughout the sourcing, recruiting, and hiring process. Another thing that you can do that's super effective to create kind of efficiency and streamline your process is creating those referral programs. So offering incentives to your internal employees to generate referrals for your new openings, and both not only internal referrals, but also creating networks outside of your organization as referral partners as well. For instance, I have referral partners at all of the state colleges in Iowa, as well as all of our local colleges and community colleges and tech schools. So anytime we're opening a position or have a position that we're recruiting on that is relatable or has candidates that I think would be from those resources, I definitely reach out to those people and have them share our opening. So something else you're going to want to do is really prepare for each search. So don't just go and do it blindly and post your position and hope for the best. We have a lot of customers that, once again, they just assume since they have an ATS, they can just post their job and automatically they should get the best candidates overnight. And it's really, really not that easy. You shouldn't just post and pray. You really need to have a strategy in place, and you need to know your candidate demographic. So different job titles, different industries are, equal different talent pools. So you shouldn't be utilizing the same exact resources for every single job that you're recruiting for. For instance, if I'm looking for an HVAC journeyman, I'm probably not going to go to LinkedIn to try to find those individuals. So just keep in mind who your demographic is and what type of people you're looking for, and then translate that into the resources that would be most successful to find those people. And then also, like I mentioned before, forecasting your hiring needs. Typically, this is something you should do at the beginning of every year. Get an idea of where your hiring is going to be, what departments are going to be hiring, what the headcount is, so then you can be as prepared as possible. Something I implemented here internally is conducting kickoff meetings with hiring teams that are hiring. So every time a department in our company is hiring, I meet with that department head. We come up with a strategy about what resources we're going to use, who's going to be doing what, who's going to be doing the interviews. Is it a panel? Is it going to be one-on-one? What should I be asking as a screener and a sourcer when I'm screening candidates out on the phone? So those are all things that we come and get prepared before we even produce that position or before we post it. And then also consider the candidate's perspective. Understand the needs of qualified candidates. What is a qualified candidate going to need from you as a company to really be interested enough to apply? We live in a job market today where unemployment rate is the lowest it's been in 50 years. I'm sure all of you are well aware of that. It's super competitive. So if you're not thinking about it from a candidate's perspective, you're probably missing out on the people that are really, really qualified for your roles. So think about compensation expectations. What's truly competitive in your market for the positions you're trying to fill? Think about benefits and perks that you can be adding that maybe you didn't think of before, that employers are more and more often starting to add in as benefits and perks, and things that candidates want to see to get them to maybe move from one company to the next. Because by and large, any qualified candidate that's applying to your positions is probably currently employed. So you have to at least match what they're getting today or offer something better for them to really make a move. So some general sourcing tips when it comes to recruiting. These are things that I go through probably on a daily basis. So like I mentioned before, explore your existing candidate pool when it comes time to really find candidates for a role that you're trying to hire for. Previous applicants that have applied to similar positions in the past, that's a good place to start. I know a lot of customers of ours that, they post the same positions maybe 6 months apart. And when they close that one that maybe they posted in January, by May or April or whenever, they don't even go back and look at the previous candidates that they talked to before, when really they might still be interested. It doesn't hurt to reach out and re-engage with those other candidates that you've talked to in the past. And then creating that internal referral network, once again, making sure that you have that set up and in place, and hopefully you have some type of bonus or incentive for your internal employees to refer candidates for your openings. For instance, here at BirdDog HR, probably the first thing that happens when we post a new position is there's a company-wide email sent out identifying what the position is and encouraging people to refer people to it that they know that might be interested or qualified. And then it, just as a reminder, includes our bonus structure and how our referrals work. And typically with referrals, those are the people that stay at your organization the longest and turn out to be your best employees. So referrals are huge. Having those networks in place is very, very crucial. Same thing with external referral networks, local colleges, trade schools, industry-related partners. Anything you can do to get yourself and your brand and your company out in the community and get that word out there is crucial as well. And then probably the biggest thing when it comes to sourcing qualified candidates is engaging them quickly. You can do so, like I mentioned before, with automated messaging. Hopefully this is something that whatever ATS platform you're using today allows for you to do that or allows those resources to be created in your system. And then don't hesitate to pick up the phone and just call people or text them. More and more, I'm starting to confirm interview times or confirm phone screen times via text message. It's instant. You get an instant response and confirmation. Sometimes emails go to spam, or they just go unreplied. So texting or just picking up the phone and calling is typically the quickest way to get a response or a confirmation from a potential candidate. And then also, obviously, just cast a wide net. Leverage technology to spread the word about your openings. Utilize social media platforms. Utilize job boards. Utilize resume databases. Email campaigns. We utilize an email campaign tool that it utilizes AI and machine learning to basically do a comprehensive search based on keywords that I'm putting in, based on the positions that I'm recruiting for. It allows me to generate profiles across multiple different platforms and reach out and send emails to them directly about my specific opening. So look into those types of tools as well. Those are probably going to be added tools on top of your ATS, but they're definitely worth looking into. Once again, referral networks, and then finding groups and associations that could lead candidates to you. State workforce sites, community-based partners. Once again, that's another one of the big reasons we partnered with AJE is getting out on those state sites and getting into those community-based partner sites and just staying engaged on that side of things as well. And then social media groups and networks. I'm involved with a lot of different groups on Facebook, a lot of different groups on LinkedIn that anytime I have an opening, a lot of them are specific groups specific to a specific technology or a specific skill set that I go out and share relevant jobs with those specific groups just to engage with them and see if there's anybody out there that they can refer, or if they're interested in themselves to go ahead and apply. So leveraging social recruiting, this has become more and more relevant. So if you're sitting there today and you don't have really a platform for your company on things like LinkedIn and Facebook, I would definitely highly consider creating those. I would say nowadays it's pretty standard that you do, but I do have some customers that's their biggest concern is, they say, hey, Dustin, we really don't have any presence on LinkedIn or Facebook, or, we had an admin create these, but they've since left our company and we have no way of going in and erasing it and starting fresh. So those are definitely things you need to consider is having those platforms. So kind of a 3-step process that I like to remind myself when it comes to building up those platforms is the first thing you need to do is build it and grow your following. The fastest way to grow your following is by enlisting your current employees, getting them to share it with their friend groups, getting it to share it and like it with all their personal friends. So, for instance, I have a lot more friends on my personal Facebook, or a lot more connections on my personal LinkedIn than at one point Bird Dog HR did. But if I can share it with my friend list and get people engaged with our company site, that's just going to expand our reach. And then once you get that leverage and you have some reach and you have some followers and it's starting to grow, make sure you're tailoring your content, update your followers with not only your company, but any industry related content is good to share. And then in between, sharing things about your company or organization, definitely be promoting your jobs and recruiting. It's just another way to actively engage with potential candidates out there. So here's some steps on how to engage. So once you have your social media platforms, built out, here are some things that you can do to expand that following and expand your reach. So something we do internally, we have employees of the month. We share those out on our social media to try to gain traction, get people engaged with those posts. We share photos of company events, different things going on in our office. I know a lot of our construction companies that we work with will post pictures of their projects, maybe a start and then a finished picture just to see, how far they came on that project. Even things with your city. It's crucial to post things that are ongoing. I know last year, Forbes named West Des Moines, Iowa as one of the fastest growing cities for millennials. That was something, we created and we posted on our social media sites and shared with people, just letting them know that where we're located is an up and coming place, and the millennial market is somebody that we target when it comes to recruiting. And then also don't be afraid to start creating video content as well. Put up testimonial videos, not only on your website, but even sharing them out on your social media platforms. People really, really like to engage with videos and photos. So it's definitely something that you'll want to do. And then this slide just kind of goes to show, once you create followers on your social media platforms, how much that can fuel your success when it comes to recruiting. So 95% of followers are more likely to respond to an email if they're following, your company on a Facebook or a LinkedIn or something like that. So that's something to keep in mind. 61% of candidates are more likely to share their information with you if they're following your company. So, for instance, if on LinkedIn, if you're looking for candidates for a specific job and you're looking through people who follow you or profiles who follow your company, if you find one that matches and you reach out to them, chances are they've heard of your company, they're following you on that platform. Over half of them are going to reply to you, which is a huge number. And 79% of candidates are typically interested in job opportunities from companies they follow. So if you're a company that has a massive following, maybe hundreds or thousands of followers or connections on LinkedIn or Facebook, that 79% could be a huge list of potential candidates or potential hires for your organization. And then probably the biggest thing right now, too, is making sure that you're going mobile, making sure that your application process is optimized to be mobile. 70% of job seekers today are using their mobile devices or tablets to search for jobs. So if for some reason you're not mobilely optimized, I would highly recommend doing that. A good thing or good practice is testing your mobile application process, doing it on your cell phone as a test applicant or picking up a tablet and applying, seeing if you're running into any roadblocks or seeing if you're running into any issues with that mobile process. And according to Glassdoor, 49% of job seekers have found difficulty with trying to apply on their mobile devices. So it's definitely something that candidates are doing and definitely something that a lot of candidates find that they're struggling with. So definitely something you want to include and definitely something you want to test to make sure that it's operating and functioning properly. So you're not having a candidate drop off for people that are trying to apply on their mobile devices but are running into those roadblocks. And then social media buttons or badges. This is definitely something that you want to include when you're trying to build out those social media platforms and expand your brand and expand your recognition or reputation. So you want to include these on your email signatures, website, business cards, newsletters. Something we do at events is we even create QR codes so people can come up with their mobile device, scan the QR code, and it will take them directly to a job that we're hiring for. We've had great success with that. If you're interested in this, or if you need help or you're not sure how to set these up, there's definitely a lot of free resources out there that can help you or guide you on how to do this. I've included 3 there below: sharethis.com, our perfect icons, and add this. Those are just 3 that I've found or used in the past that I've had success with. And just a brief recap of kind of everything that I touched on today during the webinar. I know it was kind of a lot of information to throw at you in a relatively short amount of time, so I just wanted to kind of go through this one last point to drive it home. But make sure you're building a solid foundation and making sure that it's geared towards your recruiting efforts and your candidate experience. So not just building the foundation, but from a company perspective, but also thinking about it from the candidate perspective as well, will go a long way. Create a reputable employer brand. So this is huge. Make sure you're a reputable company. If people are going to research your company or they're Googling you, how are you showing up on those search engines? How are you being reviewed? That's definitely something you want to pay attention to. And then understanding your data and apply it to your sourcing and recruiting efforts. Like I said before, know your time to fill, know your turnover, know that the resources that you're spending money on have that ROI. Because, if you're finding a situation where you're hiring a lot of people, but they're not working out, maybe it's your process, maybe you need to review that. But also you're wasting a lot of money. So it's important to invest in use resources that you're seeing that ROI on. And then preparing for each search. Don't go into it blindly, like I said before. Work with your department heads, work with your hiring managers, make sure that everybody's on the same page. Keep the process consistent regardless of the jobs that you're recruiting for. I know I have a lot of customers that have multiple business units, and some of them do things differently. It's completely decentralized, and that kind of creates some issues for them. So try to keep your process centralized, even if you have multiple locations or multiple business units. once again, use the right tools, making sure the tools that you're using or investing in are actually, results driven. If you're using or investing in things that aren't working for you, you're really just wasting your budget. And then casting a wide net, build your following on your social media platforms, and definitely make sure you're mobile friendly. And then just to give you some more resources, these are on our website at birddoghr.com. If you're interested in learning more or diving into any of these specific topics I touched on today, we have a lot of resources available for you to do that. We have blog posts about HR trends, some of our software features. You can download white papers and view even some of the previous webinars that we've done. So if that's interesting to you, or if you want to learn more about us or the topics I've covered today, I highly recommend going and checking out our website. And with that, I'm going to pass it back over to Christina, and we can get into some questions if anybody has them.
Thank you, Dustin. At this time, we have roughly about 16 minutes left for questions. All questions that are submitted will be recorded. If we are not able to address some questions during our live broadcast, we will get them to Dustin in follow-up. First question, Dustin. Our managers are asking about creating job posting language that helps attract diverse applicants. Do you have any advice or specific language that helps/hinders in this area?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So typically, regardless of the demographic I'm recruiting for, if it's a situation where I want to get a more diverse or inclusive candidate flow, I'll utilize resources that are niche to those specific markets. So there's a lot of job boards out there, or a lot of partners that we work with that allow us to do that. But as far as the language of the actual job ad goes, it really just depends on the specific demographic you're trying to target. I know, for instance, a lot of our customers will seek bilingual applicants. So if that's the case, you would include that in the job ad and make reference to that. I don't have any specific examples off the top of my head of specific language that I would recommend including, just because some of that can be kind of a gray area. You don't want to exclude anybody while trying to include people as well, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Dustin. Next question. Interested in learning more about email campaigns since we are a nonprofit. We need a free system. Do you have any recommendations?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I don't have any free recommendations. Most of the email campaign tools that we use all come with kind of a subscription or fee-based process. But I will say this, what you can do is utilize your internal database. So if you're recruiting on positions and you have an internal database of candidates, what you can do is refer back to those previous candidates that maybe have applied 6 months, 8 months, a year ago, and generate kind of your own internal email campaign and reach out to candidates that way. I think that would probably be your most efficient and cost-effective alternative to going out and shopping around for paid email campaign services.
Great. Thank you, Dustin. During your presentation, you mentioned a benchmarking tool. What is the tool you use?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So the benchmarking tool that I use, and it's really just to help me gauge time to fill for specific positions and titles. It's on workable.com. It's under one of their resources tabs. And I can share the link out. We can include that if somebody needs the specific link, but it's through workable.com. It's a really good tool, and it covers basically every industry. I haven't come across one that it really didn't have an option for.
Thank you. Next question. There are a lot of recommendations to include in the ad. How do we do that without making the ad so long that the applicants lose interest?
Yeah, that's a great question, because as I mentioned previously, a lot of times job seekers are only spending about 60 seconds reviewing job ads. So the biggest thing is to make sure what you're saying is relevant. a lot of times customers will send me job ads and it will be, 7,500 words, and they're thinking that their job ad has to be their actual formal job description that you would get somebody to sign off on, a new employee to sign off on your onboarding process. That's not what it should be. An ad should be as to the point as you can be, without going into too much detail or losing their interest. So keep it very definitive. Keep the absolute must-haves. Keep the primary responsibilities. Don't linger into job or to other duties or essential functions that really aren't relevant to the job. That's what I see a lot of times. And then the biggest thing is captivating them at the beginning with your culture and the type of candidate that you're seeking. That's what they're probably going to read first, and they need to be able to identify with that. And then data shows that job ads between 200 to 1,000 words have the highest apply or click to apply rate. So you should keep it in that range depending on the type of position. Any job ad below that is too little information. Any job above that is probably going to lose out on applicants just because it's too much for them to read and they don't want to scroll through it and they're on to the next job.
Thank you, Dustin. Next question. What do you recommend if you receive a negative Glassdoor or Indeed employee review?
Yeah, so Glassdoor actually has said that less than 12% of the companies being reviewed on their site actually engage with their site. So the biggest thing I'll say is don't ignore it. A lot of companies will just ignore that negative review and not do anything about it. Both of those platforms, Glassdoor and Indeed, allow the actual company to respond, but don't take criticism to it. Don't take offense. Just respond. Maybe offer some type of peace offering. And then something you could also do is if you're really getting bombarded with negative comments or you're worried about your reputation online on Glassdoor or Indeed or Google or something like that. Encourage some of your current employees to go out and leave a positive review to kind of counteract some of those negative reviews. That could go a long way as well.
Thank you. Next question. Is there a sweet spot as far as how many job boards to post out to?
Yeah, so our internal ATS allows us to post out to any relevant job board that all of you have probably heard of. Indeed, Indeed, Glassdoor, Career Builder, Next, some of the bigger ones. I would definitely always include those just because you don't know what type of applicants are out there. However, when it comes to specific niche positions, there's probably going to be resources or job boards that are better than others. For instance, if I'm looking for truck drivers, I'm going to try to post to truck driver or trucking specific job boards rather than posting it to, like GitHub or something like that for developers.
Thank you. Next question. In your experience, are certain job boards better for certain types of positions? For instance, entry-level versus management or warehouse versus office positions?
Yeah, so like I just mentioned, there's definitely job boards that are tailored for specific job titles or for a specific demographic. So that's something you should definitely consider when you're posting your jobs. For instance, if I'm looking for a warehouse worker, I'm probably not going to go to our LinkedIn company page and start reviewing our LinkedIn recruiter and start reviewing warehouse candidates. But if I am looking for an office position or an admin position, LinkedIn is definitely a resource I would use. So it's just a matter of looking at your data, checking your source analytics, seeing what type of responses you're getting from the resources you're using, and then kind of analyzing which ones are worth keeping or which ones are better for which specific positions.
Thank you, Dustin. Next question. If you were hiring multiple people for the same position, can we use just one job ad?
Yeah, so our ATS, and I'm assuming most are similar. So if you're posting for one specific job, but you have multiple headcount or you have multiple positions to fill, I definitely recommend doing it with just one job ad. And the reason being is because typically, bigger job boards like Indeed, for instance, if you post the same job in the same location multiple times, you're going to get flagged for spamming and run the risk of being blacklisted from their site, which means they're not going to allow you to post your company or open positions on their website. And you don't want to lose that traction, and you don't want to lose that reach. So I would definitely recommend leaving it as one post, especially if it's somebody or a position that you're looking to hire all at the same time. If it's a situation where you have a position to fill today, and maybe 6 months from now or 3 months from now you're going to be needing to fill the same position, then definitely separate it out into 2 different postings. But if it's all an immediate need, leave it to one list. Unless it's in different locations, then obviously post it in each individual location.
Thank you, Dustin. Next question. I've seen a few job ads listing starting salary or an hourly rate. Do you recommend including this in job ads?
Yeah, so the thing I always say back to customers who ask me this is, if your hourly rate or your salary, your starting salary is truly competitive, and there's a lot of resources out there to see if the salary or pay you're offering is competitive in your market for that specific job, then I say go ahead and list it. It doesn't have to be an exact number or an exact hourly rate or exact salary. Go ahead and list a range of kind of your bottom dollar and your top dollar, and go ahead and include that information in your job ad. But if you find after your research that you're truly not competitive in your market for that specific position, I would just leave it to something like salary depending on experience or depending on experience or something like that. Keep it more general rather than offering that type of information. And then something else you can do too, if maybe you don't want to include your pay rate on your job ad, is you could ask the question as kind of like a pre-screen question, maybe on the phone screen with a candidate, what their salary expectations are, kind of put the ball in their court, and then make the decision of, hey, is this person way below, way above? Is this somebody we can actually afford?
Thank you, Dustin. And our next question, what are the legal requirements of job ads?
So hopefully, labor laws and workforce laws are changing, day to day almost, it seems like, and even from state to state. So hopefully you have some type of legal counsel or a compliance officer in your office that you can work with to ask these questions. So if you have specific questions, they can help you with those. But one thing that I always say is, if you're asking pre-screen questions, make sure that those questions are legal. Make sure you're not asking, very personal questions, are you married, things like that. Keep it specific to the job. Another thing too to keep in mind is, if you create pre-screen questions for a job and you're filtering out candidates based on their responses to those questions, keep it consistent throughout the life cycle of that posting. I have a lot of customers that make the mistake of, hey, we're not liking the responses to this question, we're going to change this question, but they leave that same position posted. So they're not qualifying candidates based on the same parameters, and that can get you into trouble if you were ever to get audited and they look at your positions that you posted and the responses to those questions. They can ask you, why did this person get flagged out for answering yes or no to this question and this person didn't? So just keep it consistent. But like I said, if you have specific questions in regards to the legal requirements, I myself am not an attorney, but hopefully you have somebody in your office who maybe is, or you have that resource to provide that for sure feedback.
Thank you, Dustin. And we have another question. Budgeting, is there a rule of thumb?
Yeah, so with recruiting, like I said, based on SHRM data, the average cost of a hire is a little over $4,000. So if you're doing forecasting and you can kind of tell, hey, we're looking to hire X amount of people this year, you can kind of loosely use that as your benchmark, and then go from there about what resources you'll need to be utilizing to actually fill those positions. And then hopefully you already have some type of applicant tracking tool or software or solution in place to kind of help you, utilize some additional resources like job boards and maybe even pushing things out to your social media platforms that maybe might save you in the long run if you were, instead of going out to those job boards directly or going out and posting pay-per-click ads directly on those sites, because those can get really expensive.
Thank you. And then our final question. Are the slides available for printing? And I can take that one, Dustin. We will be sharing a link after the webinar that will give you the link to review the slide deck as well as listen to today's recorded webinar.
All righty.
Thank you, everyone, for your questions. Thank you all for attending today. And thank you, Dustin, for your very insightful presentation.
Yeah, thanks, Christina. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
You too. This will conclude our session. Again, please keep an eye out for our follow-up email that will include links to review the slides and record today's session. Have a pleasant day.